So if you've been following the news, you've probably felt it that a definite increase in tension between India and Pakistan. It's it's hard to say if it's still climbing or maybe just paused, but things are definitely on edge.
They really are. It's striking just how quickly things heated up this time. It really shows how fragile that relationship can be, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the spark, according to our sources, seems pretty clear. That awful terrorist attack back on April 22nd, 2025, in Pahalgam, that's in Indian-administered Kashmir.
Mm-hmm. A devastating incident, 26 people killed, and crucially, one Nepali citizen among them.
Yeah, that detail is important for our discussion. Now, a group called the Kashmir Residents took responsibility. They said they're fighting for Kashmiri independence and, well, specifically targeting non-Muslim Indian activities.
Right, they've been active in the region before, pushing for integration with Pakistan. But India wasn't buying that as the whole story.
No, they immediately pointed fingers. They accused the Kashmir Residents group of having, strong ties to Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Which is, of course, a major Pakistan-based organization. And that accusation really set things off in India.
Understandably. Especially since the victims, apart from the Nepali national, were Hindu tourists. You saw this huge public outcry, immense pressure on the government to hit back hard.
And Prime Minister Modi's statements reflected that. Very strong language, promising a, quote, severe response. No ambiguity there.
Exactly. So that's the setup. The attack, the accusations, the public anger. Our goal here today is to sort of unpack what happened next. We want to look at the chain of events, figure out how likely war actually is, and really importantly for you listening, explore what all this could mean for Nepal and Nepalis.
Yeah, that Nepal angle is critical. It often gets lost when the focus is just on India and Pakistan. But the ripple effects are potentially huge for Nepal, given how interconnected things are.
Okay, so let's start right after the Pahalgam attack. India's immediate reaction, what did that look like?
It was fast and pretty sweeping. They shut down border crossings, stopped trade routes with Pakistan, a major physical disconnect right there.
Wow, okay.
Then they canceled visas for Pakistani diplomats, citizens too. That's a serious diplomatic move. And perhaps most worrying, there are these reports unconfirmed, but worrying about India maybe canceling water treaties.
Water treaties, that sounds incredibly serious.
It would be a massive implication for regional resources if true.
And Pakistan, they obviously wouldn't just sit back.
No, they mirrored India's actions pretty closely. Expelled Indian diplomats, stopped all trade going the other way, and they closed their airspace to Indian planes, which causes all sorts of travel and logistical headaches.
Right.
Plus, and this really shows the level of concern, the Pakistani government actually told people living near the border to start stockpiling food.
Stockpiling food, that tells you they were genuinely bracing for conflict, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And it wasn't just diplomatic tit for tat. We saw military moves too, right?
Yeah, India reportedly ran security drills in several states, sort of flexing their military muscle, showing readiness.
And if you look back, this kind of response, well, it fits a pattern, doesn't it?
You mean after other major attacks, like the Uri attack in 2016?
Exactly. India launched that surgical strike then, and after the Pulwama attack in 2019, we saw the Balakot airstrike. So there's a history of military retaliation.
Which definitely raised the stakes this time. Everyone was kind of expecting something.
Precisely. Which brings us to the next big event, India's airstrike. Walk us through that.
Okay, so this was on the night of May 7th. About 2 weeks after Pahalgam, India launched airstrikes, and crucially, not just in Pakistan-administered Kashmir, they hit targets inside Pakistan proper as well.
And their official story was very carefully worded.
Very. They said they hit 9 locations, all identified as, quote, terrorist infrastructure. They framed the whole thing as non-preemptive, non-escalatory, proportionate, and responsible.
Yeah.
The stated aim was just dismantling these networks, stopping fighters from crossing into India. That was the official line.
But Pakistan told a completely different story.
Completely different. They said only 6 places were hit and insisted they were civilian areas. Definitely not terror camps. Plus, they made this huge claim that they had shot down 5 Indian aircraft.
A claim India flatly denied.
Right. So lots of conflicting information. But what's clear is that this exchange, this airstrike, and the conflicting claims has pushed tensions higher than they've been in maybe 2 decades. Our sources agree on that.
Which leads us right to the big question.
Yeah.
How close are we to actual war? Because Pakistan must be under enormous pressure to hit back now, right?
Huge pressure. You've got the army chief, the prime minister, both publicly vowing a response. A lot of experts we're looking at think some kind of Pakistani counterattack isn't just likely, it's probably, well, almost inevitable for them strategically.
It's about deterrence, isn't it? Both sides trying to show they can and will inflict pain.
Exactly. Reestablishing deterrence. That seems to be the driving force. Each side wants the other to think twice next time.
But it's such a dangerous cycle. What actually determines if this spins out of control into full-blown war?
Well, a huge part of it will be how Pakistan responds. What's the scale? What's the nature of their action? And then, crucially, how does India react to that? Any misreadings, any miscalculations right now could be disastrous.
And the internal politics in both countries must be playing a big role, too.
Oh, absolutely. You've got the BJP government in India, known for its tough line on Pakistan, needing to look strong domestically. And in Pakistan, the military is incredibly powerful, and historically they've used the threat of conflict with India to, maintain their influence. Both sides need to project strength to their own people.
Which just keeps the tension simmering and increases the risk of someone making a mistake.
It feels like very high-stakes brinkmanship. The room for error seems vanishingly small right now.
So war is definitely possible, but maybe not. Maybe not guaranteed.
That's the key, I think. The threshold for all-out war is still very high. Nuclear powers don't rush into that lightly. But the danger of tripping over that threshold by accident through miscalculation feels much higher than usual.
Okay, let's think of a worst-case scenario. If war does break out, what could it look like? We have some data on their military strengths, right?
We do. The Global Firepower Index ranks India 4th globally, Pakistan 12th. So on paper, India looks stronger.
But paper strength isn't everything, is it?
Definitely not. Look at Russia and Ukraine. Everyone expected a quick Russian victory based on military size, but it's become this long, drawn-out conflict with huge losses for Russia. So simple rankings don't tell the whole story.
And we have assessments from experts on what an India-Pakistan war might actually involve.
Yes, we looked at analysis by Arison Kaz, a defense and national security expert. He predicts that even just an air war between them would likely cause massive casualties on both sides, probably without a clear winner.
Grim. And then there's the ultimate fear.
The nuclear dimension. Kaz highlights this too. Both countries have nuclear weapons.
Right.
And he warns there's a real danger, if things escalate conventionally, that it could spill over into nuclear use. Annihilation. It's a terrifying prospect.
There was that Rutgers University study, too, wasn't there? About the global impact.
Yeah, that painted an absolutely catastrophic picture, suggesting a nuclear war between India and Pakistan could kill over 1 billion people worldwide through famine and climate effects. Now, that's an extreme scenario, obviously, but it shows the stakes.
Even short of nuclear war, a conventional conflict would be devastating.
Absolutely. Think about the past wars between them. 4 major conflicts already, causing over 30,000 deaths, 80,000 injuries, and weapons are much more lethal now. The human cost would be immense.
So this brings us squarely to Nepal. How does all this potentially impact Nepal and its people? Where's the most immediate danger?
The most direct, heartbreaking risk is for the Nepalese serving in the Indian Army, the Gorkha soldiers. There are around 34,000 of them across 7 regiments.
And they'd be on the front lines.
Almost certainly. And history shows that during wartime, recruitment often ramps up. So you could see more young Nepalese drawn into the Indian Army, potentially increasing Nepali casualties even further.
A terrible prospect.
Yeah.
What about Nepalese living and working outside the military?
There's a huge number of Nepalese in India. The official figure is 6 million, but estimates suggest it's actually much, much higher.
Right.
They'd face risks to their safety, obviously, but also potentially mass job losses if the Indian economy takes a hit. You could see a huge wave of people trying to return to Nepal, which would put enormous strain on resources back home.
And the smaller Nepali community in Pakistan would also be vulnerable.
Yes, they'd face similar risks, just on a smaller scale.
And Nepal's border with India being open, that creates specific vulnerabilities, doesn't it?
It does. Firstly, the risk of refugees. If war displaces large numbers of people in India, Nepal could suddenly face a massive influx, similar to refugee crises we've seen elsewhere. Managing that would be incredibly difficult.
And the security implications.
Yeah, there's also the worry that an unstable situation could lead to more cross-border infiltration, maybe terrorists trying to use the open border to transit towards India.
Okay, let's talk economics. Nepal relies heavily on India. How would a war affect that?
Hugely. Nepal imports something like 900 billion Nepali rupees worth of stuff from India every year. That's over 60% of all imports.
Wow, that's massive dependency.
It is, and it includes essentials, fuel, food, medicine, fertilizer, building materials. War would almost certainly disrupt those supply chains badly. Think shortages, price hikes.
Like the 2015 blockade, but potentially much worse.
Exactly. The blockade gave us a taste of how vulnerable Nepal is. A full-scale war next door would be exponentially more damaging to supplies and prices.
And it's not just goods, it's the currency too, right? The peg.
That's another big one.
Right.
The Nepali rupee is pegged to the Indian rupee. So if the Indian rupee weakens because of the conflict, and we've already seen some initial wobbles, the Nepali rupee automatically weakens too.
Which makes everything imported from outside India more expensive.
Precisely. Anything priced in dollars, for instance, suddenly costs more Nepali rupees. It just adds another layer of economic pain.
So economically, it looks pretty grim for Nepal. What about the diplomatic tightrope they'd have to walk?
That's incredibly tricky. Nepal has always tried to maintain good relations with both India and Pakistan. A war puts immense pressure on that balancing act.
Pressure to take sides.
Potentially, yes, or at least navigate very carefully. Nepal officially has a non-aligned foreign policy, aims for neutrality, but sticking to that while also potentially trying to advocate for de-escalation would be a major test.
Especially given past criticisms of Nepal's diplomatic responses in other regional issues.
Right. This situation would really test Nepal's diplomatic skill and capacity to the limit.
And circling back to the absolute worst-case nuclear war, the impact on Nepal would be
unimaginable, catastrophic. Forget just supply chains. We're talking widespread death, long-term radiation poisoning, environmental collapse across the entire region. Nepal wouldn't be spared.
So even short of that nightmare, a conventional war means a massive economic crisis, shortages, instability right on Nepal's doorstep.
Exactly. Even without nuclear weapons, the fallout, economic, social, humanitarian, would be severe for Nepal.
It's quite sobering to see how in both India and Pakistan, you sometimes hear these voices, segments of the public almost, cheering for conflict.
It is worrying. It often feels like it comes from a place that doesn't fully grasp the reality of war. The posters, the slogans, they don't show the actual horror, the loss of loved ones, the destruction people force from their homes.
The sheer human cost gets lost in the nationalism sometimes.
It does. And for Nepal, as we've laid out, this isn't some distant problem. It's happening right next door. The analogy you hear sometimes, it's like a fire breaking out in your neighbor's house.
You're inevitably going to feel the heat, smell the smoke, maybe worse.
Precisely. The impact is unavoidable.
So look, as we wrap this up, I think the strongest feeling coming through from our sources, and it's one I certainly share, is just a deep hope that things cool down, that de-escalation happens, that we avoid the horrors we've been talking about.
Absolutely, because it's so clear, isn't it? Peace and stability between India and Pakistan isn't just good for them. It's essential for the well-being of Nepal and, frankly, the entire region. Our fates are really intertwined.
It really drives home how connected we all are and how these big geopolitical events have such profound, far-reaching consequences. Definitely something for all of us, especially you listening, to keep thinking about as this situation develops.